They were efficient about it. Clinical. They would arrive in a system with 3 Dominion-class dreadnoughts, broadcast a single message on all frequencies, submit or burn, and then wait exactly 6 standard hours for an answer. 43 times, the answer had been submission. It was cleaner that way. Less mess. When they arrived at a small, unremarkable solar system on the edge of the Orion Arm, third planet from a yellow dwarf star, mostly water, atmospheric composition predominantly nitrogen and oxygen, they ran the standard assessment. Dominant species, carbon-based bipeds, approximately 1.7 to 1.9 meters in height. Technological classification, Tier 4. Primitive but functional. Early spaceflight capability. Population, approximately 8 billion. Military threat assessment, negligible. Fleet Admiral Zorvith studied the readout with mild contempt. They have not even achieved faster-than-light travel, his tactical officer, Reen, observed. Reen was young, ambitious, and had the kind of confidence that comes from never having been wrong about anything important. Their most powerful weapons are chemical propellant projectile launchers and crude nuclear devices. Their naval capacity consists of orbital satellites and a handful of research vessels. Send the message, Zorvith said, already thinking about his next conquest. The broadcast went out on all frequencies, translated via the standard galactic lingua matrix. Attention inhabitants of designation Sol 3. You are hereby claimed as territory of the Virati Empire. You have 6 standard hours to transmit your unconditional surrender. Failure to comply will result in orbital bombardment of your population centers. This is your only warning. They waited. At hour 5 and 42 minutes, a response came back. It was not a surrender. The message was short. The translation algorithm flagged several terms as having no direct equivalent in galactic lingua and had done its best to approximate. Admiral Zorvith REA. It 3 times. He called his linguistics officer in. She read it. Then she read it again. Is this? Zorvith started. I believe, his linguistics officer said carefully, that they are telling us to perform an anatomically impossible act upon ourselves. In considerable detail. She paused. They also appear to be questioning the marital fidelity of our maternal progenitors. They are insulting us. Comprehensively, sir. The translation matrix is struggling with some of the more creative compound words, but the overall intent is. She cleared her throat. Unmistakable. Zorvith stared at the message for a long moment. 43 worlds had submitted. Not one had ever responded with this. Primitive species, Reen said, though something uncertain had crept into his voice. Fear response, probably. They are attempting aggression as a psychological defense mechanism. Begin bombardment, Zorvith ordered. The first kinetic impactor never reached the surface. It was destroyed by a ground-based rail system that, according to their assessment, should not have had the targeting capability to hit a fast-moving orbital projectile. The second impactor was also destroyed. The third, the fourth. Reen looked up from his console with an expression that Zorvith had never seen on him before. It took him a moment to identify it. It was concern. Sir, Reen said slowly. Their targeting systems, they are not reacting. They are predicting. They have somehow calculated our firing solutions and are hitting our projectiles at the precise point of maximum vulnerability during their descent trajectory. That is not possible with Tier 4 technology. I know. Run the assessment again. I have run it 4 times, sir. Reen set down his data terminal with uncharacteristic care. I think our assessment may have been based on incomplete data. Part 2. The Reckoning. What the Virati Empire did not know, what no species in the galaxy had properly catalogued, was that humanity known the VD Ority were coming specifically. They had not. They had simply assumed, with the cheerful paranoid pragmatism that defined their species, that someone would come eventually. It was statistically inevitable. The universe was large. Intelligent life was probably common. And in their experience, which was, admittedly, limited to their own species, intelligent life with technology tended to expand until it bumped into something else. Humanity had bumped into a lot of things in its history. Other tribes, other kingdoms, other empires. They knew how that went. They had written entire libraries about how that went. They had museums dedicated to all the ways that had gone wrong. They were not going to let it go wrong again. The project had various names across its 60 years of development. The internal military designation was Longbow. The Civilian Oversight Committee called it Planetary Defense Initiative. The three lead engineers who designed its core targeting architecture, two women and a man who had been working together since graduate school, called it Tuesday because that was the day of the week they had started the project, and they had a tradition of naming things badly. Tuesday was operational. Had been operational for 11 years, running constant simulations, upgrading hardware, cross-training operators. The humans working the stations beneath their planet's crust had run this scenario so many times that destroying incoming kinetic impactors felt routine. Boring, even. The night shift supervisor at the Pacific Basin installation had reportedly been eating a sandwich when the real attack began and had finished it before her shift ended. But Longbow was only part of it. 42 minutes after the failed bombardment, the Verati dreadnoughts detected launch signatures from the planet's surface. 73 objects. Moving fast. Accelerating faster. Missiles, Reen said. Primitive chemical propellant. Those are not chemical propellant. Weapons officer interrupted. Her name was Tava, and she had the particular stillness of someone who had identified a problem and was choosing her words with extreme precision. The acceleration profiles are wrong. Too fast. Too sustained. The thrust output is consistent with. She stopped. With what? Zorvith demanded. With antimatter drives, sir. She looked up. But that is a Tier 7 technology. They should not. I know what they should have, Zorvith said. The 73 objects reached the dreadnought's defensive perimeter in 4 minutes. Standard point defense systems engaged. Destroyed 11 of them. 17 more were destroyed by emergency energy barriers. The remaining 45 made contact. They did not explode. That was the thing that the Verati tactical records would later note as the detail that should have been the most alarming. The objects did not explode. They attached. Then they talked. A signal broadcast directly into the dreadnought's communication systems, bypassing encryption, bypassing security protocols, bypassing everything. This is Commander Ewan Park of the Earth Planetary Defense Force. You have committed an act of war against Earth. You are hereby given the same choice you gave US. Stand down and withdraw, or we will demonstrate that your assessment of our military capability was significantly flawed. You have 6 minutes. 6 minutes, Reen said. They gave us 6 minutes instead of 6 hours. They are being polite, Tava said, very quietly. They are giving us time to think. Nobody moved for 4 of those 6 minutes. Then Zorvith looked at the objects attached to his hull, objects that had bypassed every defensive system his empire's finest engineers had designed, and he thought about those 42 minutes. The ground-based systems that could predict ballistic trajectories, the antimatter drives on Tier 4 ships, the translation matrix's difficulty with the specific compound words in humanity's initial response. He thought about species that had survived 60 years knowing something was coming and had spent every one of those years quietly, patiently getting ready. Open a channel, he said. The Galactic Council received the report 14 months later. It came from a Verati diplomatic courier, a small vessel, unarmed, broadcasting surrender codes on all frequencies, and it contained Admiral Zorvith's full account of contact with Sol 3, along with sensor data, tactical logs, and a personal addendum that the translation matrix flagged as containing significant emotional content. Council chambers held representatives of 67 species. They had been meeting for 2 days to discuss a trade dispute over mineral rights in the CETA system, which was exactly the kind of tedious administrative matter that kept the council occupied most of the time. The Verati report interrupted that meeting. The chambers went very, very quiet. Councillor Meth Sa of the VPIL, who had been a diplomat for 40 cycles and prided herself on being unshakable, read the tactical assessment 3 times. Then she set it down and was silent for a long time. They hit it, she said finally. They hit all of it, said the Horian representative, a massive gray-furred elder named Vorak who had seen 3 wars in his lifetime and had the expression of a being recalibrating something fundamental. For 60 years, the biological data alone, the Skiliig hive cluster began, but the sounds that followed were not their standard translator output. The sounds were something more like the clicks and chittering that the Skiliig made when they were processing something they had not been designed to process. The Verati addendum, Zorvitha's personal account, had been written during the 14-month transit. It was thorough. It covered the bombardment response, the antimatter drives. The hull attached devices that had turned out to be not weapons, but communication nodes because, as commander,